Alright, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Chupacabra's lair. I'm your host, Larry, and we're back for another indie gaming first look here today, checking out Sentinels, which is made by Mindwalker Games, and it's currently available on Steam Early Access for around $14.99. Now, despite the third-person FPS sort of feel that you've got here, this is a game that is all about tower defense, defending your military base against marauding bands of mercenaries that either work for some type of city-state or a futuristic corporation. If I had to take a guess what kind of universe this game exists in, I would say that it's kind of like a post-apocalyptic scenario where most of modern society has collapsed, disappeared, or moved somewhere else, and the only people really doing stuff are, again, city-states and corporations that have enough money to hire giant armies of mercenaries. And the way that this game is going to kind of sell itself to you is how exactly it jumps between top-down view, which is your sort of typical, more straightforward tower defense sort of view for a lot of games, and also your first-person view, which is handy for directly taking out different groups of enemies and just giving yourself a bit more control. So we're going to jump in to these preview levels that I've got access to and see what exactly is it that means for the broader scope of the game. There is a little bit of a story going on in the game. There are some characters, there's some voice acting, which is pretty good, and we'll get a chance to check that out for ourselves.
Sam? Sam?
Just 5 more minutes.
This is not a wake-up call, Sam.
I'm up.
And sober enough?
Said I'm up. I can handle, let's see, 2, 4.
It's 37 and counting, Sam. Meteor Storm requires a systems check. Right-click to activate the structure.
Alright, so here's our primary character. His name is Sam, and I'm not 100% certain if he's just a mercenary or if he works for a specific organization or government, but Sam is our protagonist, and like a lot of swashbuckling, kind of charming military characters you see in books or movies, Sam, he's also a bit of a drunk, and he's woken up with a hangover, so with the help of his robot assistant, or his robot, maybe I would say handler, because she's more trying to get him under control half of the time, we're going to try and stop these mercenaries from invading our base. And to do that, we have 2 primary types of towers. We've got your standard towers, which you put them down, they shoot things on their own and take care of business. And then we've got a fire tower, which will call down meteors from the sky and murder things. So you've got automatic towers and usable towers that you can use at your discretion. This also includes things like acid towers and a few towers that I'm not really even sure how I would describe them. And we use all of these to kill pretty much anything that gets in our way, including these cute little mercenaries. Probably trying to get into our base and steal our top secret bacon supply, or maybe our honey baked hams. And I don't really want that to happen. They're kind of a gnarly group of people.
I felt good.
And I mean, it's like you'd imagine a pretty standard tower defense game is to start with, where you stop waves of enemies. Some of them are flying, some of them are on the ground, some of them move fast, some of them move slow and have a lot of health. All of that stuff is in here and is more or less what you would expect.
Your personal weapon is now online.
Just in time for nothing to shoot.
Not quite. The enemy has dropped some supply points.
So now you can see the gimmick for this game, where the idea here is rather than like clicking on a tower like you can in some games and saying, okay, you're exclusively meant to slow units down or to hit fast units or to shoot flying units, this game has a lot of that logic baked into the towers, and then it then allows you to take direct control of individual towers and use them in more of a first-person slash third-person mode, somewhere in between there, so that you can shoot things while all the other towers do their thing independently of you.
Use spacebar to activate the mobile gun platform. This can be used to move between guns, collide with enemies, or briefly get closer to your target.
And then, of course, you can hit spacebar to either jump between them, or, like she was saying, you can even hit enemies with your murdery goodness.
The mobile gun platform.
So it's almost like you zoom yourself out, smash into stuff, and then zoom back into the tower. So it's kind of neat, and I mean, this is one of those things that's either going to sell you on the game, or kind of break you on the concept, if I had to give it an ample description. And with that, I guess we'll just jump through here and just kind of enjoy, see what the rest of it is like as we go through here.
Locked and loaded.
And a lot of the gameplay from here on out is really going to be managing or micromanaging, jumping out of a tower to make sure that all of the activatable towers are doing their thing, like the meteor towers, and then jumping back in to make sure that if there's any particular annoying enemy that you want to deal with right off the bat, you can do that. In this case, it's going to be these really heavy, fast, like what I would call them, personnel carriers, and maybe a couple of these little fast-moving hover cars. It's really up to you, and it's one of those things, it's like you got to use your tools, whatever is the most comfortable for you, so that you get the most bang for your buck. In the case of this first level, I would say the most bang for your buck is just trying to properly manage your use of your fire towers, so that things like this Jeep don't get through and sneak behind enemy lines. That way you can get the maximum number of points and not miss out on all of that sweet, juicy score. Although how I didn't get the full 2 stars like I did the first time I played this, I'm not really sure. And then, of course, you can also get, it looks like, some upgrades, which I didn't even see that before, which is nice. So actually getting a higher score benefits you because you'll actually win some upgrades, which I definitely like. Now, the other thing you can do is you can jump between different difficulties if you feel like getting a challenge, depending on the level. Some of them only offer, like, rookie difficulty because, obviously, the first mission, it's meant as a tutorial, not meant as a challenge. Then you can unlock different things, upgrades, encounter modifications, which change, like enemies have more health, they're stronger, they go faster. All of that stuff. It's a very, what you would expect from a tower defense game, just with that added little niche gimmick or selling point of being able to jump directly into the tower and control it as if you were sitting there in the tower shooting things. Like you were in a tank or something. Which I think could be compelling, depending on who you are. Personally, I mean, I'm not opposed to that. I play a lot of games like Dungeon Defenders 2, and that's about putting your towers down and then running around as a hero and shooting things.
Cat! Sam, how nice to see you. Listen, I'm about to blow something up here, so let's talk later.
No time for your experiment. There's an army at your doorstep.
Oh, Sam, you're always so worried. Now, where was I?
Okay, so here's another one of our compatriots. This is Katrina, or Kat. And her deal is she's a bit of a sassy scientist, and she's going to be helping us with a lot of new tower technology and cattiness as we go along through the game. And one thing I do like about this game is while there isn't like a hardcore like story, like the Gabraxians invaded because you touched their mining reserves and then the space people came down and started using their tentacle lasers. They do have some nice characters that are kind of funny, that have their own unique personalities, and have some pretty decent voice acting attached to that. Although, some of the voices used to sound a little bit more robot-y, so I think the overall quality for the lines have also improved to some extent from when I last started trying to check this out. So now we're going to start getting introduced to some of the other usable items in the game. In this case, we have the ability to throw flasks of death. These are just literally just flasks of acid that you can hurl at enemies that reduces their armor and or melts them into a puddle of goo.
Well, I have been needing new test subjects.
So in this case, we do have towers that we can use to kill things, but for the most part, we're just looking to utilize our poison abilities to try and nuke these enemies before they even get anywhere close to us. And the further we throw these flasks of murder, the more damage that they are going to deal. Which I think is cool, so it actually incentivizes you to do like a really long distance hurl with your poison / acid to get the most bang for your buck. And this is also really nice because if you're good at aiming, you can basically take out entire swarms of fast-moving little guys with little to no effort on your part. Which, you know, I'm all about maximizing my effort when it comes to murderizing large groups of mercenaries. So why the flippity floop not? I wonder if there's like a Geneva Convention article that says you shouldn't be pouring acid on people as like a weaponized tool, because that tends to just deform people, which to my knowledge is a little bit rude. But then again, I've never actually fought in any wars, so who's to say? Uh-oh, these trucks have maintained most of their health. We can't have any of that. No siree.
I love the smell of acid in the morning.
And of course, our lovely doctor friend, she's a bit of a sadist at heart. Or sadistic? Yeah, sadistic, that's the one I'm looking for. Sadist, sadistic, all that good stuff. And she just loves burning people and listening to them and watching them get all crispy in the morning. So maybe be careful with her if you ever go to a holiday party with her and she hands you a mystery cocktail. Might be something suspicious in there. Oh, I only missed one. Come on now. You could have just given that to me, game. Trying to be a saucy science person. But I mean, this is basically the idea. You kind of get the premise of the game here.
As usual.
The only thing I'm not entirely certain that I'm sold on is how suddenly complex the pathways of the enemies get later in the game. Because, like, right now they're going over a road, but pretty soon, like, you'll have enemies climbing through the woods over here and the mountains, like literal people walking through the terrain and climbing up stuff and going every which way. And you got, like, tanks and flyers and crab walkers, and it gets a little excessive, a little quick, which I'm not sure if I'm super stoked on that, but it certainly is what it is. So now we're going to blow up these crystals, which will illustrate the fact that we can convert these Vulcan turrets into a sniper. And oddly, this also does damage to our actual turret too, because when you shoot with this, sometimes it'll like crack your scope, which that doesn't seem like a very safe sniper function to me. So I'm gonna put down a couple of sidewinders. Now, this is definitely something else that I noticed that is supposed to give you a tactical element in this game, is where you get some of these rooftops which are a funny shape. Normally a lot of these turrets are going to be a square shape, so you have to put them in a 4x4 square or some other type of square. Whereas you get these long-range artillery sidewinders that target air units. Maybe artillery's the wrong way to describe it. These are more like a missile launcher, and they only fit into a plus symbol shape, which is 3x3 at the center, so it's a little cross. So you gotta be careful of utilizing your roof space properly so that you don't run out of it. But at the same time, you know, make sure you put plenty of goodies here and there, otherwise you'll quickly get overwhelmed, which would be a little annoying, admittedly. So that's probably good enough right there. Let's get ourselves murderized. So I'm gonna activate this, and let's just start chucking acid around. Really, the goal isn't to overthink this or try to spend too much time strategizing. It's best to just start chucking acid at people so as to maximize the effectiveness of whatever you're doing. Because I've actually ruined a few of these levels by spending too much time deciding where to aim and not just shooting people. So we're gonna get these big, slow-moving transports. These are definitely the unit that was meant to be used with acid, because as you can see, these things move at a snail's pace, and they have a boatload of health, so the best thing that we can do is just annihilate them with armor-dissolving acid so they don't get far.
Yeah, gotta come from Frank.
Sensors confirm this. Significant forces are converging on Frank Spencer's current location.
Absolutely perfect.
So this guy's like a tank, just covered in armor. I'm not sure how I like him or not, but that's not a big deal. I can certainly deal with that. Man, that tank has a load of health. Let's greet it with some more acid around the bend.
Final wave.
And then we should probably be more or less good at this point. I think we're in the clear-ish, so long as we keep spamming acid that we can share with our friends to take home and spread amongst the family. It's kind of like poison ivy. Acid is the gift that keeps on giving in the most horrifying, skin-destroying ways possible. There we go. So I don't think we're going to be getting... Oh, we are going to get a perfect score. All right. I'm not going to say no. That is for sure. So, yeah. That is kind of in a nutshell more or less the idea behind Sentinels. It's a lot of usable towers, which is fun. I like that a lot. There's more challenging modes if you want to challenge yourself once you unlock newer and better towers and items and stuff. And there's a bit of a story. I think there's a good combination of things going on here. Again, I feel like things ramp up kind of suddenly once you get into higher level stuff. But aside from that, I mean, I haven't really had a lot of complaints. I think the gimmick of being able to directly in like a third-person-ish, first-person-ish mode view be able to take control of your towers and shoot stuff and then jump out and activate stuff and do it again is really strong. Some of the towers function as like snipers or shotguns or just giant artillery pieces. That's kind of cool. And I think it gives a fair amount of variety and would certainly be worth the $15 price tag. That said, I also think that it's a really, you know, steep competition out there with games like Dungeon Defenders 2, which offer not the same type of gameplay, but a similar type of let the towers do their thing and then run around using your own powers to shoot stuff. And that game is eventually going to end up being free to play. So with any tower defense game that you're going to run into, it's going to be whatever you like and whatever you're comfortable with and whatever you find fun. I think this is pretty enjoyable, and I think this is something I would definitely recommend to people. But you're just going to have to take a look at it and decide for yourselves. So until next time, I've been your host, Larry. This has been a look at Sentinels, a tower defense game made by Mindwalker Games. It's on Steam Early Access. Check it out for yourselves, and I will catch you next time. Bye, everybody, and have a good one.